lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. The claws in my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. You are you, I am me, and you're stuck with me for about an hour if you stick around. I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pretty epic day. I'm feeling a little better. Maybe I'm going to beat this. Maybe I'm not going to get the whole cold thing. I don't know. I'm teetering on the edge. I've been doing all the supplements and stuff, so we'll see what's going to happen here. But time will tell. I'm doing my best. I'm giving it the good fight. But this is the Bedtime Stories from Beyond, and I hope you all are ready, all tucked in, all comfy, because it's time for bed. Welcome. It is the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. We are now underway, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing great, and anything going on in your worlds, you'll have to let me know in the chat. I don't know if I got any mods here tonight or not. I don't see any blue names appearing, so it might just be me. So if you want my attention, definitely in your message say Paranormal Portal first, and it'll make that orange box, and I'll look for that as well as I can. Yeah, I do sound a little bit better. I could be allergic to Don. I think I'm allergic to his what is it? His sage and whatever marinade that he wears. I don't know. It could be. It's possible. I've been working really hard on jamming all that stuff. Hey, Cade, good to see ya. Good to see MCAT, Deb, Rivers. Wonderful. Blue names. When there's a moderator in the chat room, when they chat, they'll have a blue name with a little blue wrench next to their name. That's what I mean by that. So I don't see any in our chat currently, so it doesn't look like any of them are here tonight. But that's okay, because you guys are usually a pretty awesome crowd, so I can't see this going sideways. So just behave yourselves, because I still can. I can mod if I have to. But anyway, I don't know what's going on, Jess. I'm not sure. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't know, but just real life happens. And, you know, I do this show 7 nights a week, so I can't expect everyone to be here at all 7 of those. You know, what do you do? Jerry Klein troll. The Jerry Klein troll just came in the door. All right. We're in trouble now. Let me get the banometer out and and we'll take care of that. But let's take a look and see who is here currently. Let me just roll through this. I got 19 of you apparently here currently, but let me see if the participants list looks like it's actually accurate tonight. It says Brian Sullivan, who is also known as the Duke, who will tell you on every episode he can, do not, I repeat, do not hug the Wookiee. Cade Shipley's in here. Chris Guy, good to see you guys. Deborah Varner's in here. Duck Sauce is in here. Gemini Moon is in here. Jerry Klein has showed up into the house. Good to see you all. Jess Mink is in here. Joe Kukowski, Louis Ta, MCAT, and Pam are in here as well. I'm in here. Randall Electric is in here. Renee Harvey's in here. Rivers is in here. And Virginia is in here. So we have, I think that's everybody. I think that's the most complete that list has ever been. For the amount of, if then I didn't give you a shout out, just say, hey, I'm here in the chat, and I will shout you out as well, because I always like to celebrate who's here. I mean, you guys make the show amazing, and it's always really cool to see you guys. And if I don't see anybody, I certainly don't mean any slight by that. Now, here's the thing. I don't get a list of the people that are just watching. I only get a list of participants, and so that means people that are chatting. So if you're just watching and not chatting, I don't know that you're there, but I just want you to know I love you all the same. It's perfectly fine if you're not a chatter. It's just great that you're here showing up. And if you're watching the episode after it aired live, very cool. Thank you so much. Those views keep coming in all the time, so it's really neat that the shows seem to have a value. It's not just a live show. You know, you guys are enjoying them at all different times. And, you know, I guess that's the hard part about doing a live show. It's not convenient for everybody everywhere. So, and I apologize if that's you. I don't know. But just so you guys know, I did upload the latest podcast for release tomorrow. It'll be available at midnight. But it's Don and I talking about the mysterious little people, and it's kind of a prelude to us getting Robin on there to do her magic. But we just thought we'd introduce the concept and discuss the different little people, and just an overall picture, because quite honestly, not everybody's really aware of what these are. I mean, most people relegate those stories of little people to just legends and lore and fantasy. And quite honestly, people are seeing these things still to this very day. So these are an actual phenomena. They are around. I don't know what they are. I don't know why they are, but they are. So that'll be tomorrow's episode. So if you are not already subscribed on a podcast platform to the Paranormal Portal, please do so. And I would love to see you. Oh, Melissa. That's okay. I love you all the same. Melissa just messaged me. That's my cousin's wife, and she's letting me know she's listening. So love you bunches, and I'm glad you're listening out there. It's great to know. So anyway, you got your shout out anyway. See? That's how we work. But let's get into some of these stories and see if I can keep you entertained for the course of our journey. Throughout the course of our journey, I guess would be more proper. See, I'm getting kind of rough. My voice is getting kind of raspy. But I think I can beat it. We'll find out. I guess tonight will be, I'm on that teetering point now. It does feel a little better, but we'll see. So anyway, we're going to go to Arkansas right off the start here. And this has to do with an old woman that didn't ever seem to leave her house. Ba-bum-bump. Excuse me, I might be coughing, and I'm sorry for that. I can't mute myself every time. They just kind of come. I'm not Gru. Who the hell? Lewis, you're grounded. Go to your room and think about it. Lewis says, I'm Gru from Despicable Me. What the hell? Lewis, that's not a compliment. Oh, man, you're going to lose your chatting ability in just a minute. I'm about to mod. Sorry. Anyway. All right, let's go. Here's from Arkansas. When I was in junior high, my dad's company had him gone 3 weeks out of every month. And as a teenager, it was great for me not to have my dad watching over my shoulder all the time. But it got pretty tiring for him. His company was out of Nebraska, but they had another location in a little town about 45 minutes from West Memphis called Marianna, Arkansas. And my dad and two other engineers would spend 3/4 of their time there. So after spending tons of money at the local Holiday Inn, the company decided to buy an old house in town for the guys to stay in. Excuse me. My father was the one there for 90% of the time, and at any given time, there might be 4 men in this house. My dad helped find a huge house on one of the main streets in town, an old manor-looking house built in the late 1800s. The great thing about it was that after the lady had passed away, she had no surviving relatives, and the furniture stayed with the house. So they thought it was great to get the furnished 5-bedroom mansion type at a cheap price. There was even an elevator built into the house. The owner's daughter had polio, and rather than carry her up and down the stairs, 3 flights of stairs, they added the elevator. We thought it was really cool to begin with. Everything went really well for the first couple of months, and they were close to work, and it was kind of like second home for the guys, and they got pretty comfortable. About 2 months after they purchased the house, they would get woken up by sounds of the elevator going up and down, and my dad would get up to check on it, and everything would look fine. So I think he put it out of his head and figured it was old wiring or something, and he'd go back to bed. This might happen 2 or 3 times a night. They had a caretaker that would come in a few times a week and clean and watch the house when there was no one staying there, and she would complain that her supplies would disappear on her, and sometimes she would feel like someone was in the house with her. One time she complained that she kept a garden in the backyard and the gardening gloves disappeared on her, and she went and bought new ones only to have the original ones on the kitchen table when she returned. That's creepy. So I remember one night my dad called my mom in a panic, and he and a couple of other guys had driven into Memphis and had dinner on Beale Street, and they had a couple of beers and ribs and came back home, and about 2 in the morning, my dad and Larry, the one whose room was next to my dad's, woke to the sounds of someone running up and down the hall. They sounded like they were going to the bathroom down the hall, and at this point, they thought that there was someone in the house, and my dad kept a handgun in the nightstand, so he grabbed his gun, and he and Larry were sure that they would open the bathroom door and catch an intruder. Well, they opened the bathroom door and found muddy footprints that went into the bathtub and stopped. At this point, they were baffled and a little freaked out. They checked the windows, checked the doors. None had been bothered. After that happened, they always laughed it off as to the old ghosts of the house, and sometimes they didn't feel real comfortable when they had to stay in the house by themselves. So one August, the company decided to fly all the families into Memphis for a kind of company picnic, and they had us staying in Forest City, which is halfway between Marianna and Memphis. And the second night we stayed in Memphis, all the guys had teenage daughters, and apparently they didn't think we would be comfortable staying in the house, but we did spend the first afternoon there. You know how teenage girls are. They like to snoop. Well, when you would go up to the first set of stairs, you came up to a landing on the second floor, and there was a huge portrait of the owner, and I remember it creeped us out. Not because it was very old. It probably was done in the 60s or early 70s, but because she was looking straight ahead. So no matter where you moved, it looked like she was watching you. You go up to the next flight of stairs, and there was a door and another set of stairs that led to the attic. And one of the girls and I decided to go take a look. And as we opened the door that led to the attic steps, a basket with fake flowers came flying at us like someone was at the top of the stairs and threw it down. It scared the crap out of us. I remember we couldn't get downstairs fast enough. At this point, there was no way that we were going to try the elevator, and I remember our dads kind of chuckling and telling us that it must have fallen off something in the attic right at us. And we just decided that the old lady didn't want us snooping in her house, and the company had the house maybe another 6 months, and I think they finally sold it, and my dad and I talked about driving by the house, and if we're ever back that way, maybe ask the owners if they still have wiring problems with the elevator. Very interesting. So yeah, the old lady just didn't leave. But I'm not sure about the whole muddy footprints. I don't know. I mean, usually when there's an old presence that stays in the house, they love the house. I mean, that was home, so they're not normally going to do things to trash their own house, like running through with muddy footsteps. So it sounds like there might be someone else hanging out there as well, not just the old lady. That would be more of a kid thing, juvenile kind of antic, I guess, or I don't know, some kind of prankster anyway. Excuse me. All right, so the next one's coming out of Virginia. Hey, Virginia, it's a story from Virginia. Virginia, Virginia. I'm sorry. I'm easily amused sometimes. So back in high school, I went over to a friend's house after school, and we were up in her room, and she decided to tell me that there was a ghost in her house. At the time, I really didn't believe her, and I really didn't believe in ghosts, and I honestly thought she was crazy. And she began telling me what crazy things would happen in her house. She said that the ghost, or whatever it was, would change the TV channels, change her radio stations, and rip her cat pictures off the wall. These pictures were the ones she got out of a calendar and hung on her wall. I don't like kitties. After she told me these things, we decided to watch some television, and she would put on the TV on a certain channel, and the channel would change. And every time she put it back to the same station, it would change to another one. Yeah, it freaked me out a little bit, but hey, just like I said, I didn't believe in ghosts, so I just thought to myself that she changed the channel with the remote that goes to the TV. No big deal. Next, she wanted to listen to some music, and the same thing happened. The station would change from what she wanted to be listening to something completely different. I just knew somehow that she was messing with me. Well, she was getting mad that nothing we did was working out. No watching TV, no listening to music without it changing on us. So she started digging under her bed. As most kids in school, they love to hide things under their bed or just shove a bunch of stuff under there. And I heard something rip. Great. Now she was trying to get me to believe the cat pictures in her room ripped. She looked up at me from digging under her bed and said to start looking at my cat pictures. I looked around the room, and they all looked fine until I got to the one that was behind my head. It was ripped in half. I almost screamed when I saw that. I knew there was no way anyone could have done that. It was not ripped when I came in, and no one was in there but her and I. I looked into the mirror across the room, and I saw a dark shadow. I took off down her stairs and told her I was calling my parents to get me, and I never did go back over to her house again. That day, I started to believe in ghosts. That's a pretty adamant haunting, I guess. Now, I had an issue here in the studio, moving it downstairs here. The studio used to be upstairs in our house here, and it was, a good location and all, but we decided to rearrange things in the home here. So we moved the studio down here, and in this room, I couldn't get anything to stick to the walls. Nothing. No matter what I used duct tape. I used lots of duct tape, and everything would still end up on the floor. In fact, during a couple of episodes, things fell off during the episode. Now, is that necessarily paranormal? Well, no, it's not, but I couldn't, for the life of me, when it was just Scotch tape, it was like, okay, that's not going to be strong enough. I got to get something more. So I used masking tape next, and everything ended up on the floor. Then I used freaking duct tape. Now, if you're familiar with duct tape, that stuff is the kind of stuff that, it will tear. You can tear it, but it's an incredibly strong and incredibly adhesive tape. And everything would still end up on the floor. So everything you see behind me is now nailed to that wall because I couldn't keep anything up. Everything just kept falling. So it's either nailed or screwed in, and that's the only reason things are staying. So apparently whatever's going on here didn't like the decorations much, but I guess we've come to an accord of sorts. So, but yeah, true story. I couldn't keep anything on these walls. It kept falling down. And the walls aren't like greasy and grimy, so it's like For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why the duct tape wouldn't hold. So I just use nails and screws, and so that seems to be holding pretty well now. Nothing has come down since it's been hammered and screwed. So got that going for me. So anyway, but again, I've in this house, I'm sure there's an old woman presence because I'm up all the time. I just don't sleep well, and I never do. So I'm tossing and turning and up and down all through the night, and I'll come downstairs and use the restroom or just check the house, and I'll walk through these patches of like an old-fashioned perfume, like an old lilac perfume or jasmine or whatever. I don't know my flowers real well. I just know that it's not something modern. It's pretty old, whatever the smell is. But, and I assume then it's not always in the same spot. It's in different spots. I'll walk around and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, yeah, there's that old perfume again. So I think that's just a way, if there is a presence here, and I guess I believe there is, that's the way she lets me know that she's around. And she's not horrible, not mean at all. In fact, I think that she's probably just a wonderful person, but I think the decorations probably were creeping her out. So, but I think she understands now. I hope anyway. But true story. I have no reason to embellish or lie or make up things for the sake of a show because I don't have to share these things, but those things really did happen. So let's get to the next one. The next one's coming from Washington. And let's see. Not too long. This one's pretty short. Excuse me while I take a drink. There we go. Gardenia? I don't know. Deb says gardenia. Does that mean like an old flower perfume? Maybe. White diamonds, Elizabeth Taylor. I don't know. I think that's more perfume you can taste. I don't know. Maybe, but I can always. It just smells like a perfume an old lady would wear. That's all I can say, and I don't mean that disparagingly. It's just a real, I don't know, flowery kind of scent. So, all right. So let's go to Washington and see what's going on here. This happened 20 years ago. Man, this happened 20 years ago, and it took me 10 years to finally tell someone. And even now, I'm very careful about who I tell it to. And I woke up at about 5:30 a.m. No, I wasn't dreaming. And when I saw the time, was getting ready to go back to sleep, and instead, there in front of me were three figures: an adult female, an adult male, and a male child. They were in repose. The woman closest to me, it was weird because it was as if I was slightly above them. And there was a bright light behind them, and they all appeared in kind of a holographic way, 3D in other words. And I was so shocked and scared, and I could hardly breathe. Sorry, I drank soda, so it's fighting back. And I managed to ask, "Who are you?" The woman turned her head and looked at me, and then turned her head back. They were all looking up, and the vision dropped like an elevator out of sight, and the room went black. Naturally, I was scared to death, and I told no one. Then 3 weeks later, while I was at my brother's house, yes, I was elsewhere this time, the vision appeared again, and again early in the morning. And this time, however, it was just the woman, and she was holding a telephone receiver and appeared very stressed, very upset, and crying. I again asked who she was, and again she looked at me, and then the vision dropped out of sight. This time I was more curious than scared. I left the next morning to visit family in Minnesota, and this happened in Washington State, and I went of all places to a psychic fair. Oh, cool. Hold on. I sought out someone who was doing tarot readings, and I had a reading. And then I told her what happened and said I was worried that I had attracted something evil or bad. And she took a deep breath and went into a trance, who knows, and told me that no, this person was caught in the astral plane, and if I ever saw her again, I should send her to the light. I was seeing behind her. Another 3 weeks went by. Why this was in 3-week increments, I don't know. And I did see her again. And this time she looked very scared, very defeated, and she was still holding the phone, and I asked her to look at me. She did, right at me, and I told her to turn and go into the light behind her because that's where her husband and son were. I don't know why I said that. I have no idea who those other people were in the first time I saw them, but it just spilled out. She looked at me one last time, turned, and walked into the light, and the picture dropped again. And I never saw them again. But afterwards, for many years, and it still happens, I will see disembodied faces floating by, or sometimes whole street scenes, which could be remote viewing, who knows. I'm always awake when this happens, and very occasionally, it happens during the day. I have no idea what this experience was, and I've been trying to find out, but the only answer I ever get is that I helped someone cross over. So, is this a ghost story? I don't think so, but I don't know where else to put it. Wow. It sounds to me like this is a sensitive, but she may not realize that she's a sensitive, and when she's in that relaxed coming out of sleep stage is when she's the most open and able to perceive these things clearly. I suspect if this person were to meditate and were to work on honing her sight and ability, that she would probably become a pretty fantastic psychic or clairvoyant or whatever. But yeah, very cool story. And I think that that's probably why a lot of these things happen at night or around bed. It's when we're in those relaxed states, and that's when we're the most open. That's when we're all our daily defenses are down. We're in our bed. We're just in that relaxed Zen state, which is nearly a hypnotic state in itself. But I think we can see so much more in those states, and then probably when the stress of what we're seeing kicks in, then our normal shields come up and those visions fade. Like, we often think that these ghosts are appearing and disappearing, but I really think that it's probably has more to do with us, that we are just more open or less open. And so when the ghosts seem to fade away, it's just our anxiety closing our filters and blocking that out. So we don't know we're doing it because it's just such a natural state for us, but we think that while we're normal, we're fine. Well, when we're in those, almost altered states, that's when I think we perceive the spirit world so easily. And I think, we get in those states during the day, and we get it, here and there, for whatever reasons. And so when we're in those open states, we can perceive the beyond that veil much more clearly than we can at any other time. And it takes some pretty intense training to open that up to be able to command it. But it can be done by anybody. I think we're all psychic. We're just, some people, again, are just more naturally attuned to it, and others of us have to work to attune ourselves to it. But I don't think the ghosts are necessarily coming and going as much as our awareness is coming and going. So, just my 2 cents, but I think I'm on to something there. So, Ken came in. How you doing, Ken? Good to see ya. Great to see ya. Did you guys start early last night? Yes, we did. You know what happened? No, you shouldn't hallucinate. It was my fault. So Don comes early on the nights that he's here, and then we record for the podcast. So because, otherwise, Don can't be here all the time because he's just so busy. So he was able to, come early on the nights that he's going to be on the show anyway. And then we sit down and record at least one podcast episode and then do our regular show, 2-hour show. So it's a lot of shows in one night. But what happened last night was we were all sitting and ready. And I'm like, okay, you ready? Okay, let's go. And then I thought I was hitting record, but I ended up hitting stream. And so we ended up broadcasting a future podcast last night on YouTube. And we didn't know it for like about 75% of the show. And it was all of a sudden Don said, hey, why does my phone tell me that we're streaming? And I was like, huh? And I looked and I saw it and I was like, oh my God. So it was fun and it was fine. I mean, it wasn't a horrible thing, or nobody was picking their nose or anything that I know of, but it was just an accident. So whoever was there were able to get a sneak peek at an upcoming podcast. And we do record the video of those because at some point I want to open up another part of the paranormal and just have it be the podcast episodes, whether it's on YouTube, and it'll just be an extra feature, maybe for membership at some point in the distant future, whenever that becomes a possibility. I don't know why. Maybe we'll just release them on YouTube just normally. These are the podcast episodes, but it it was just an accident. And then once we became aware of it, people were like, all over, and everybody's laughing. It was good fun. It was funny. But afterwards I did take it down. I made it private because it is for a podcast. And so anyway, good times, good laughs. It was humorous. But so it was on accident. But if anybody was able to catch that, I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, so where are we going now? We're going to Ohio. We're going to Jerryland and D-Land. Jerry, are you still in here? We're going to talk about Ohio. All right, so this is a pretty short one. It says, I was about 6 years old at the time our house was 3 stories, with the second floor being rented out. My brother Mark and I went to sleep on the 3rd floor, which had 3 bedrooms, and after saying goodnight to our parents, I ran up the steps alone. Mark was still in the living room talking. When I reached the top step of the 3rd floor, I saw a really young girl around the age of 4 or 5 sitting on my bed, and she was dressed in a white frilly dress, and her hair was long and curly with a large white bow on top of her head. And we didn't speak, we just looked at each other, and after standing and staring, I turned and ran down the stairs to get my parents. My older brother was at the bottom of the stairs when I told him a girl was sitting on my bed, and he said he would run her off, thinking she may be living on our 2nd floor. And I never went further than the bottom of that first flight of stairs, and she was gone, never coming down the steps. I told my parents about the young girl, and they said no children were living on the 2nd floor at all. Nothing was ever said again. 4 years later, I was playing in a bedroom on the 2nd floor, which no one slept in because it was always cold. And my mom was giving my twin sisters a bath when the bed lifted off the ground and started to shake. I started laughing, thinking my 2 brothers were doing this to me, and I leaned over the bed after it was lowered to the ground and lifted up the bed covers, and no one was under the bed. I didn't tell anyone until 5 years ago. The family had gathered for Thanksgiving dinner, and I told my story about the bed being raised off the ground. To my surprise, Karen, my younger sister, had experienced the exact same occurrence in that cold bedroom. She never told anyone until that night. My mom moved out when I turned 21. I don't know why I was able to see the little girl, but I have never forgotten her. Huh. That's a cool collection of stories, I guess. Those old houses, they got a lot of old ghosts. Okay, so this one is coming from West Virginia. Virginia? This is West Virginia. My nephew Jason told me one time that he had seen a ghost in their house out at Rigg, West Virginia, where they lived as he was growing up. And now Jason is much older now, but this is what he told me about that one day. He said he had seen a ghost of a pilgrim standing in the bathroom. Now this house has been standing for many years, and I'm most sure it was there back in the Civil War days and slavery. And some nights I stayed out there, I felt like someone was breathing over me at nights. I would automatically freeze and wouldn't move, and I would keep the light on in that bedroom all night. Another ghost story I have for you is it all happened when my older sister's husband brought these dead man's clothes home with him, and my sister seen this black figure disappear in the walls of what was once a bedroom. Now it's part of the living room, and now my younger sister and her husband live there today, so I'll have to ask her if she experienced any ghosts while living there. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? What did you do at the time? Do you all think ghosts could talk to you or not? And if they did, would you talk back to them or would you be scared and run away from them? I don't know why would somebody bring home dead people's clothes? I don't know. And quite honestly, if you ever go to Goodwill or anything, and I go there all the time because there's some amazing things you find in there for very cheap. But I often think about it. It's like, maybe these clothes are here because the person that wore them is not here anymore. So it's possible you could be wearing dead people's clothes, but I figure they probably don't need them anymore. So with a good wash, you can bring life back to them. Ba-dum-bum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here all night. So I don't know. I'm not sure why he brought home some dead guy's clothes, but that's a weird story. Now we're going to Illinois, ladies and gentlemen. Illinois, the state that ends in S, but it ignores it. So this is actually a story that happened to my Uncle Jim not quite some time ago. Not me. Quite some time ago. I just discovered this site recently, and I wanted to see someone else's opinion on the matter. Sorry. When I would visit my uncle as a child, something about his apartment made me feel really uneasy. It wasn't until I was a little bit older and after he had moved out that he told our family he thought it had been haunted. During the mid-1990s, my Uncle Jim rented an old apartment building here on the south side of Chicago, and if I am dating this right, this story happened in either 1995 or 1996. During this time, the summers here in the Midwest had become incredibly hot and dry, and Chicago suffered extreme heat waves. People were bused to shelter areas in the city just so they could spend the days in air conditioning and not suffer. Since Uncle Jim's building was very old, it had no central air conditioning, and tenants either had to buy their own window units or go without. Uncle Jim's landlady happened to be a pretty stubborn elderly woman who refused to go to the shelter areas and would not buy her unit of her own. Sadly, she wound up passing away from the severe heat. About 3 nights later, the heat was just as bad as ever, and since Uncle Jim didn't have much money at the time, he was sleeping with all the windows open and due to the lack of air conditioner. All of a sudden, he woke up because his room had become freezing cold. He stuck his arm out the window and could feel the extreme temperature difference between the outside and the inside. Uncle Jim was convinced his landlady was trying to prevent anyone else from getting harmed by the extreme heat. After that, he often reported hearing noises in the attic and something passing him on the apartment stairs. Do you really think it was the landlady trying to protect people? I don't know. Could be. But I think that's a pretty awesome haunting if you don't have to run the air conditioner. Just have the ghost stand in your room and suck all the heat out. I don't know. Could be the way of the future. If there was some way to bargain with spirits to say, could you just stand in here for a while during the summer? I'm just saying. All right, we're going to Michigan now, ladies and gentlemen. I like Michigan. I used to like Michigan a lot. I don't like nor dislike it now. It's just, I had a lot of great memories as a kid in Michigan. So anyway, let's continue. I don't know where to start, but let me just say that I'm a strong Christian and you should never mess with evil. I would agree. Just over 2 years ago, in early October, me and a few of my friends had been toilet papering people every week. It was sort of our little rendition, and we all had always heard of a supposedly satanic cult that was nearby, about 10 minutes from our high school. At this point in our lives, we'd all graduated in 2005, and we thought it would be fun if we could sneak up onto the cult's property and fork and TP them. What is fork, though? I don't know. Toilet papering, I get, but what is fork? F-O-R-K. I don't know. My friends had all been drinking a little, so I drove my friend's car, and we parked down the road in some lumber yard type of deal, and we all had masks. and were dressed in dark clothing. And I was scared myself because I've always wanted to see something with my own eyes, and I thought I was really about to. The place was in the middle of nowhere, and there was a pretty full moon, and I just remember it being fairly lit outside, and we had to climb through a fence, and we took our time about it, and there was a total of 5 of us. Jesse L., Jesse D., Alex, Andy, and myself. Once we got through the fence, there was a grass pasture, and we were all walking slowly when there was a loud, eerie noise that, to me, sounded like an old screen door slamming shut. We froze and bent down to our knees. As far as we could tell, no one else was around. So after several minutes, we continued, and we got to the forest-like area with trails and a small building, a very old small church, and on it said Church of Christ. And there was a light on in it, so we tried to open it, but it was locked. We stood around for at least 15 minutes trying to look inside this thing, but it was dark inside, and at one point, I heard something move across the floor, so with nothing really happening at this cult, we left. We walked back down the dirt road to the lumber place to get into my friend's car. I had the keys, and I couldn't get the door open. The key wouldn't work. My friend even tried it, and it wouldn't unlock. Now, this thing had an old keychain thing to push lock and unlock, but they didn't work, and without me pressing anything, all of a sudden the alarm went off, and the lights started flashing, and then the car was unlocked. We all piled in because supposedly the guy who owned the lumber yard is a real mean SOB, so I put it into drive and got cruising down the road when all of a sudden the lights just shut off. Complete darkness. I did not touch anything. Then we had to find the switch and the lights came back on, and I slammed on the brakes, of course, when the lights shut off, so I didn't know if a spirit or demon was messing with us, saying don't mess with me, but who knows. We didn't end up TPing them. The scariest thing that happened was when I got home the next day. I live about 25 miles from where the cult was. I pull up in my driveway, and I saw multiple cats. It was about 3 or 4 p.m., so the sun was glaring, and I couldn't really tell how many there were. I had one cat, but not any more than that, so I get out of my car. I love cats, by the way, but not these. They were 3 identical all-black cats, not yet full-grown. No idea where they came from, and my dad didn't have any idea where they came from, and they happened to just appear out of nowhere. The day after, I go around messing with the Satanist cult. Well, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think the color of a cat really matters. I think that's a lot of superstition. So I told a few people, and my sister works with a guy who was supposedly a ghost hunter on the side, and she told him about it, and he said that it was a warning sign not to be taken lightly. Bad things come in threes. I got rid of those cats. I put them in a box and drove them outside of a town about 7 miles from where I live in. The weird thing was, when I took them out in the country to a small road my friend said would be a good spot, an all-black car followed me down 2 different roads, and I put on my blinker to go onto the small road. It's actually called Clinton Trail, so it's small, and it put on its blinker to follow. So I said, screw this, and I went straight, and I got out, threw the cats out of the box, and haven't been back to the cult since. I guess this is nothing too unbelievable, but it's true. So someone's on the phone. Virginia's on the phone. Hi, Virginia, you're on the phone. Hello.
Hi, Brant.
Hi, how you
Hey.
doing? I am.
Can
checking.
you hear me?
I can. Yes, you're on the air.
I got an echo.
Oh, okay. I don't hear any echo on this end.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. Can I tell you a quick story about a haunted shirt?
Absolutely, I'd love to hear about a haunted shirt.
I got plenty of stories. Okay, cool. So my husband and I took kids. We went to a swimming hole.
Uh-huh.
And I don't even know where this was, Tennessee. I guess it don't matter. Went to a swimming hole we never been to before. So we get out, we go walking down to the creek, and there's like a brand new black T-shirt laying on the ground. And it's a Harley Davidson T-shirt, and it has like all kinds of different motorcycles on the back of it. And it was like a new shirt. So my oldest son, he's like, "That's a cool shirt. I want it."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He gets the shirt. Well, every time he wore that shirt, he had a wreck on his four-wheeler.
Oh, wow.
Kid you not. Kid you not. A bad wreck, too, every time. So one time we go out riding the four-wheelers, and he's like, "I got that shirt on." I was like, "You better get that shirt off." Nope, he didn't take it off. Had a really bad wreck.
Wow.
Every time. So I said, that shirt's got to go. But I had read that you don't burn stuff that has negative energy, because if you burn it, then that negative energy gets in the air and it could go on your clothes or to you or wherever. So, yeah, we took that shirt somewhere long, like down a dirt road, and we dug a hole and buried that shirt.
Oh, good.
And, yeah. So I also read, though, like if you get used clothes, to like get some rosemary essential oils and put some of that in the washing machine, and that's supposed to help get rid of the negative energy. Ken just said tea tree oil works too. We were talking about it in chat.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. So
that's really cool. Now, I have heard, and I don't know this for fact, but I've heard in my research into occult stuff that there are a lot of people believe that even at locations of where dark occult activities have gone on, they will sometimes leave objects that they've intentionally cursed for someone to find, to have those kind of things happen. So and I'm talking really dark, nefarious stuff here, but if you're ever poking around an area that has been used for rituals, they advise never pick up anything. I mean, these will be like really cool things, like, wow, that's an expensive pocket knife. And you pick it up and you put it in your pocket, and suddenly, you're dealing with a cursed object, a dark object. So, you shouldn't ever grab things from those sites, and if you do, you should make sure that you cleanse. And maybe this was one of those cases where somebody just left this brand new shirt out because they knew someone would pick it up and wear it, and they bound it with some darkness.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yep. Something happened for sure. I mean, I didn't know nothing about this kind of stuff back then, but learned about it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yep. I think it's important we talk about this kind of stuff on here. People need to know, like sure. I didn't know back then, but it's important to get this information out there, no doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just be careful what you pick up anywhere. If it looks too good to be true,
we ain't picking up nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, of course, everything can be cleansed, but it's just you don't know how strong the attachment is. You don't know how dark it is. You don't know what you're dealing with, so it's a blind thing. And if you're wrong, you could be in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, for sure. My son sure paid. He sure did. So we learned. Yeah. So anyhow, I just wanted to throw that out there because you tell so many stories that remind me of stuff, So.
Well, that's great. And now it's recorded.
All righty.
Thank you so much for calling in, Virginia.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
See ya. Yeah, that's wild. I suppose, that makes sense. Some of these dark cultish things, they definitely want to sow discord. They want to just spread darkness and hate for whatever reason. And I don't pretend to know why, but definitely be careful. Picking up objects anywhere can be risky, and we've covered that many, many times on the portal. But objects that you find in, be careful with objects in graveyards, especially, and any areas that are known to be locations of dark practices. You should definitely not pick up something because, you just don't want to be wrong. You don't want to be wrong. So, very cool. Very, very cool. Something just snapped. Huh. All right. So, let me continue. I was going to say something else about this, but I guess I've forgotten. I don't know about the 3 black cats. I think black cats just get a bad rap. It's not a fair rap either, and it's just popular culture, and the Hollywoodization of horror and trying to depict darkness. Of course, they pick colors that are dark because that symbolizes that mood that they're trying to convey of dark and shadowy and mysterious. But the black cats are no more evil than a white fluffy cat. It's just some cats are great, some cats are little jerks, and they are their own thing. But for some reason, people are still carrying those old superstitions about black cats. And I've got a black cat, and he's wonderful. I've had several black cats, and honestly, they're some of my favorite cats. And I've owned several cats, or I've taken care of several cats. You can't say you've owned a cat, because the cat owns you. Anybody that knows cats know that. All right, so that was that story. Let me get to another one here. And thanks again for calling in, Virginia. It's good to hear from you. This one is coming from Indiana. Let's see what's going on in Indiana. This one's a long one, so this is going to be the last one for tonight. We've been told that our son has an old soul. Our 4-year-old never woke us up screaming in the middle of the night when teething, and when sick, he played as hard as when he was well, and at 2 years old, he was toddling around the house to help us. Didn't get into or tear up everything. He never hit the terrible 2s, never got into the horrific 3s, and now that he's 4, he still has the same laid-back, taking everything in stride personality that he's always had. My husband and I feel very blessed to have such a well-mannered, calm little guy, as he is the exact opposite of our daughter when she was his age. Just before he turned 3, he was beginning to have conversations with us, and some things that we had observed him doing started making sense. It unnerved us, but in the scheme of things, he was little by little allowing us into his life and letting us know what he sees. Of course, some of it we had to figure out, but he was really saying, and we may have jumped to some conclusions at first, but once words and their meanings became clearer to him, he gave us great detailed descriptions of what was bouncing around. Anyone with children knows that when their child starts the journey into spoken word, most of it sounds like jumbled words and phrases that do not seem to quite fit the rest of the sentence. With him, he had a long issuance of sounds that we didn't recognize. The family, immediate and extended, began working heavily with him on his pronunciation of words. Half the time he spoke English, and that is technically the only language he had long exposure to. The neighbors spoke Spanish, but rarely to him, and the other half were a combination of clicking and almost humming sounds. So therefore, we began looking into speech therapy for him. We've always enjoyed his imagination. Even now, he prefers to be alone with his friends, but doesn't mind the intrusion when we come in. He regales us with stories of his friends, Belle and Justin, and we did not want that destroyed. With us being in our late 30s and early 40s, we know how easy it is to lose the ability to let our minds tell us a story. Plus, our daughter had gone through therapy and a psychologist, and the results were explosive, and that's a different post. So we were apprehensive about therapy sessions, even knowing it was a different therapy, different children. The offices were in the same building, but where we could afford to take him at the time. He went to 2 sessions. In the first session, the entire hour was video and audio taped. I did not like that, and several years from now, someone may be going through old records and find these tapes, and there will be my innocent angel up on the screen, and I couldn't imagine anything untoward happening, but the unease was there. The second session, we watched and listened to bits and pieces of the first while the therapist shook her head and told us that on initial observation, it would appear that he was talking to someone and waiting for answers. In her opinion, he was having fun with a friend that he had made up a language that they could have secret conversations with. She recommended a psychologist. After 2 consultations, we decided that no further action would be taken. We would just patiently try to teach him to slow down and enunciate words, and that would be our solution. There was nothing in his life pointing to a psychological problem. He was just having problems with words. Then he said the darndest thing. We have an open relationship with our children, and they have encouraged to come to either one of us with anything, and we try to, with an open mind, help, support, and love them through anything that they are going through. My terminally ill father-in-law lives with us. Higher power love for hanging on this long. So religion is a big part of our lives, and we do not discuss the ins and outs of life before and after our physical being with our 4-year-old. Anyway, any conversation to that effect is usually with my daughter and in a room with a closed door, out of respect to my father-in-law who is on that brink. One day we were checking out Daddy's race car. He drives a mini stock locally, nothing big and fancy, just an old Mustang. And our son was playing in the driver's seat, and out of the blue he says something to the effect of, "This is why I chose you, Daddy." Smiling, Daddy asked him how he was able to choose him when he was a miracle baby that surprised both Mommy and Daddy. He told us that while he was up in heaven checking out all the mommies and daddies and trying to pick out the perfect ones, he noticed Sissy first. She needed help. And then he noticed Daddy. Our son would sit on a cloud with his feet hanging down and swinging and just watching him. He liked what he saw and began checking me out. He knows that something was keeping Mommy from having another baby, but he wanted us, so he came. He said his daddy needed someone else to love as he had such a good heart, and he knew there was enough to go around. Daddy would need help with his hobbies and needed a boy to hang out with. Some facts. Between the birth of our daughter, and now 15, and our son, now 4, we had 3 miscarriages, and we were told that I'm just not a natural-born baby carrier, and we should just be happy with the child that we had. My husband has 3 other children from a previous marriage that he was prevented in seeing by the ex-wife. Big, ugly mess that whole thing is. And except that there would be no others. At 3 months pregnant, I began having difficulties and almost lost him, and was put on complete bed rest. While in a depressed state, I was introduced to my spirit guide, a white buffalo, who literally carried me through. I'm Italian, with no blondes or redheads in as many generations that my parents have knowledge of. My husband is half Cherokee Indian, quarter Blackfoot. His father is Cherokee. His mother is Cherokee Blackfoot. No blondes there. Our son is blonde and blue-eyed, and his name has the number 3 in it. I'm not sure that numerology has any kind of play in this. I'm not sure I believe that things can be determined by numerology. And then again, I'm not sure how numerology works. But all the 3s, my guide and my son, have the same color hair. Would anyone happen to have some kind of explanation on how he came up with the heaven story, or why he seems to act older than 4? And what with the made-up language that he still slips into on occasion? Anyone know what that may be? I don't know, but it sounds like he has quite an awareness of, a life before, or at least a version of life before. So that's pretty amazing. Huh. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Just sharing the stories as I find them, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have an explanation for that. Seems the child is a pretty advanced soul. And I don't know. I think that's, I think everybody's an advanced soul. But we all just have our different circumstances. And that may hinder us from being as advanced as we could be. But once we learn to turn the world off, I think then the light really comes on. So therein lies the key. Take it or leave it. But that's about what I got for you guys tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the journey. And I don't know. I guess I'll be back tomorrow night. And then Don will be joining me on Saturday. And I hope we have fantastic shows both of those nights. And I hope you guys will participate. Definitely make sure that you're subscribed. If you're not already, click the subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notified if we're on or when we're on, or if I screw up and stream more of our podcasts on YouTube, which obviously has been known to happen. So, let's see, anything else? Oh, yeah, check out the podcast, by the way. That'd be great. And be sure to check out our Teespring site. It definitely goes a long way to help us to support what we're doing here on the portal. We have shirts, we have leggings for girls and ladies, and we have mugs, we got phone cases, and a few stickers, and I don't know, Don's got about like a whole wardrobe thing set up on there. So there's hoodies and sweatshirts, T-shirts, muscle shirts, the leggings, men's and women's, everything, and several different phone cases for both Android and iPhone styles, and coffee mugs. So everybody should have a mug, I think. But anyway, check it out if you would. The description, the site is in the description of the video that you're watching now. So check out the description if you want the link. But it's teespring.com/stores/paranormal-portal. And you can check it out. And if you find something you like, definitely purchase it, and it'll go a long way to help us continue this journey and the expansion of the portal. So I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. So that's going to wrap up this episode, everybody. I love you guys, and sweet dreams.